Hello and welcome to this rendition of Tracy's Tuesday Talks. I am super pumped and excited for our guest speaker, Seth Connell. Today's topic is going to college debt free. And what better person to talk to than Seth Connell, because he is in his last leg of law school, completely debt free. So welcome, and I'm so glad you're here. And I hope that this will be something that will be helpful to you and those around you. So Seth, welcome. Take some time to introduce yourself and what caused you to want to become a lawyer of all things, and kind of that journey of that decision of, I want to do this debt free.
Well, it's good to be here. Thanks for having me on, Tracy. So I've been coaching since the end of 2018, so a little over 3 years. We're fellow Ramsey preferred coaches. Absolutely love what I do. It's really, really fun to help people win with money and just let my own personality flow in the business that I have, as we all do as coaches. We all have our distinct style and flair, and that's part of what makes it really fun. So I decided to go to law school because ultimately I wanted to serve people in the greatest capacity possible. When I was before even becoming a coach, this kind of goes back, some years, in our financial story here. We became debt free in June of 2018 after having gone through a number of trials of our own. In the midst of our debt-free journey, we paid off $27,000 in 13 months, but we had a job loss in the middle of that and lost 2/3 of our household income. And that was a really big ordeal that we had to deal with. That was me. I was let go from my job. I've been the one who's provided a lot of the instability in our marriage. It's been one of those ways. But after that, it was right after Thanksgiving 2017. I was underemployed for 6 months, doing all sorts of freelancing, 1099 gig work, really important stuff to have that worker freedom, by the way. There's some proposals in Congress to get rid of that. I'm not sure if folks are aware of that, but it's important that people have those opportunities available. So watch out for something called the PRO Act, a little side note that threatens a lot of that right now. But having those jobs, those flexibility, the things I could start up right away, enabled us to get through it. And we came out on the other end better than we were before. In the fall of 2018, I decided to study for the LSAT, to go to law school, because I wanted to serve people. I've got kind of a mind that works naturally with the way the law goes. Law is kind of a screwy thing. One of my favorite quotes in terms of how lawyers in the Anglo-American tradition is that lawyers in England and in the US are the sole interpreters of an occult science. I love that quote because it's so complex and it's strange. It's just like, what is going on here? And a lot of lawyers feel the exact same way. But anyways, I decided to do this because I wanted to help people. And so I took the LSAT 2018, but at the same time, I really love providing financial freedom to people as well. I love the financial freedom we experience, and I want to share that with other people as well. So right after the day of the LSAT, decided to go and purchase the financial coach training. Yes.
Real question? Quick, for those of us, what is the LSAT?
The law school admission test. Sorry, I get used to lawyer speak, and we just all know what that means. But basically, it's kind of like the SAT for law school is really what it is. Really difficult test. Has nothing to do with law, by the way. It's really about the way that you think. So it's a really kind of a funny, screwy thing that we all hate, but we generally all have to go through that. So ask anybody who's taken it. They'll have some prep horror stories for you, I'm sure. But after doing that, and after having that financial freedom and experiencing the amazing things that can happen when you're debt free, I decided I want to share that with other people. So I had a nice big glass of wine so that I could not feel the pain from purchasing the course, because it's pretty pricey. But purchased the course, went through it, and then started coaching at the end of that year. Been doing this part-time since then, a full-time law student. And it's really just been one of the things that's enabled us to pay the bills and pay for my law degree as well. And it's been something that's very, very fulfilling along the way. And it's just going to be part of what I do long-term here. So that's really where I currently stand. I'm going to graduate in May. I'm going to take the bar exam in the great state of Tennessee in July. And then we're going to move out there hopefully later this year. And I'm going to establish myself as a comprehensive financial planner and estate planner and just grow out in the things that I'm able to do for people.
Oh, I love it. That is awesome. I thank you for sharing that story. That's really inspiring. So one of the ways that I'm hearing that you were able to make your way through debt school, might as well be debt school, right?
Might as well be, yeah.
Law school debt free is basically working through it, having a job, having a means of income through it. And you're married and your wife was working as well.
Right. So she's been teaching for a few years. Teachers, they don't make a whole lot, as we all know, but she was able to make enough combined with what I was able to take in from my business in order to pay our basic bills and still also have some for paying the tuition expenses as well. So it's been, really challenging doing this, very, very difficult, but, we've been provided for along the way in addition to doing our due diligence. And it's just been, one miraculous provision after another every step of the way the past 3 years.
So how much does law school cost as a whole? And please forgive my child barking in the background. How much is law school as a whole? And then how much have you been having to fork out per semester?
So the cost of the law school, it can vary, but it's probably one of the priciest degrees to get, maybe probably only exceeded by an MD. Just because the amount of years you have to go to school and residency and things like that. For my program, it is $1,200 per credit is what it is. And this is a 90 credit program. So for all the credits, it's about $100,000 or so. But then you also have basic living expenses as well on top of that. So probably total cost of attendance is around maybe 125 to 135,000 for 3 years, something like that. But for a lot of law schools, especially if you go to, high ranked schools, you can sometimes go, to places where it's $1,600 per credit hour and easily spend $200,000 for a law degree at the end of the day. So it really, it gets very expensive very quickly, especially if you're going into these top 14 law schools, like Harvard, Yale, UVA, places like that. So it's no wonder why a lot of people come out of these places and they have $300,000 of student loan debt and have no choice but to go slave away at big law firms like they have nothing else to do with the rest of their lives. So when I went to my law school, it's actually my alma mater from undergrad, and they have a very solid law program there. It's very respected in terms of the Commonwealth of Virginia, which is where I currently am located right now. But they have decided to keep their tuition fairly reasonable, I guess, compared to other law schools. Fairly is a relative term, but it's still very expensive to go there. Fortunately, because of my experience in undergrad, I did the undergraduate moot court team as well for some years, which is mock appellate advocacy. Did very well in that. I had a good GPA in undergrad as well. I was on student government. I had a number of extracurricular activities that I could put on my resume. After graduating undergrad, I had some years of work experience, a variety of different things. And it was in that time I became debt free. So I had more to my name than just an undergraduate degree going into law school. I had work experience and other things making me a more holistic applicant, which I think was something very important, was having that holistic application status.
Wait. So you're telling me that it's more impressive on a resume applying to a school to have work history than to not work and spend all of your time studying, so that way you're not distracted in college?
So I think that, I had taken 3 years off after undergrad. So I decided to go into the workforce, and, it was really more because I decided I was kind of done with school at that point. But then God said, no, you're not done with school
yet. He does that.
So kicking and screaming, there I went. But, it's definitely been a God thing for sure. But but one thing I think that's helpful, especially for employers in the legal profession, because the thing is that law is more of a business than a lot of people necessarily think, because you have to be able to work profitably in order to employ people, to to do all the things that a business entails. Just because it's a legal practice doesn't mean it's immune from all the other things you have to do as an actual business. There's probably 50% law, 50% business, as one law firm owner I know has described it to me. But I think that one of the things that legal employers will value is if you have some experience in the workforce, if you've worked in an office setting before, especially if you know how to actually sell a high dollar service. That can be valuable for them, because folks are more likely to convert as a legal client if you can demonstrate the value of your service as an attorney when they come to you for that advice. So I think having that work experience, some in undergrad, but also even working full time for a couple of years, my perspective is that I think really everybody should have some work experience before going to law school. That's my personal perspective. It's not legal advice, but it is practical experience. And I think that's just one of the things that made me a more holistic applicant, was that I had academic, but also work experience to bring to the table too.
Yeah. And the reason why I made that sarcastic question was because how many times have we heard parents wanting to send their kids to college and don't want their kids to work at all because they think that their kids are going to spend 18 hours a day studying? That's not going to be the case. So from what I'm hearing, that commitment, first of all, to go to school debt free, then it was choosing a school that was not, it's still super expensive, but not the most expensive that you could go to. Continuing to work while you're in school not only provided income so you could go to school debt free, but also built up your resume as well. So what other resources, what else did you do? Because paying for law school, $1,200 per credit hour, it's crazy. On top of living expenses, on a teacher's salary and a part-time coach. There had to have been some more. There's something missing here. What is it?
Yeah, so the good news for us was that I was able to get a pretty good scholarship from my law school because of the things I had done in the previous years before coming to law school. So admittedly, we're not paying, all of this out of pocket, but all the years of work before this went into that. So there's a pretty good scholarship. It covers about 3/4 of everything that we need, but there's still quite a few $1,000s every semester, plus all the books that we have to purchase. And with the margins that we were working with, it was quite tight, I tell you, especially at the beginning. There was a lot of points where I was unsure if we were going to be able to do it, but we still kept going out and, stepping out there in faith, just knowing that, this is something we had a certain peace about, just saying that this is the right call to make. And that we were just going to trust that based on our values, our principles, saying that we're going to do this in line with what Scripture teaches, that debt is not a blessing, that the borrower is slave to the lender, and we're not going to be like that. And we've been provided for. In the summer before starting law school, I had winter, actually going back even to 2019 February. So actually just about 3 years ago now, I had a second job layoff, again, from a different job that I was working. So again, another thing that happened, is life tends to throw things at you. So over the next 6 months, I was doing work for a nonprofit and growing my coaching business and just miscellaneous stuff to make sure the bills were paid. And we were saving up for school and saving up to replace my wife's car before starting law school, all of which we did. We did all of that. Yes. We were provided for. Yes. Over that summer, I spent a bunch of hours looking for outside scholarship resources on top of what I had earned from my law school, what the admissions committee gave me. I was, because of other offers from other law schools, able to negotiate a little bit higher scholarship amount from the admissions committee, though. So I said, here's this other law school here that has a comparable program, a little bit lower cost of living where it is. I think that I'd like to come to this law school here because it's closer by, have familiarity, and know, what I'm going to be getting here. But the thing is, I think I'm going to need a little bit more on the scholarship offering. Could you take this to the admissions committee and see what they might be willing to do here? So I got a little bit more, and thankfully that helped things out significantly.
I had no idea you can negotiate scholarships.
Well, nobody told me I couldn't. So doesn't hurt to ask, right?
That is awesome. I just learned something new.
Because the thing is, I think especially a lot of folks, get this idea that whatever a college offers you, you're just kind of stuck. It's almost like this adhesion type of deal where, they're the big, bad, powerful folks. And it's just, oh, please let me in, all divine, almighty admissions committee. But the thing is, especially when you're already debt free and you have options, it changes the way that you interact with that. And I figured, why not ask? Because the only thing that can happen, the bad thing that can happen is they say no. Best thing that can happen, they gave me a little more, which they did. So it worked out. In addition to that, over the summer before, I applied for a bunch of scholarships. I think it was like 70 or 80 different scholarships I applied for. So I just really went out. I wrote a bunch of essays, did a bunch of no essay, easy scholarship applications, and I was able to win just under $10,000 from everything that I had applied for.
Nice.
So it was one scholarship that I wrote an essay for, and then another one, and then the nonprofit organization awarded me one as well. So a number of different things we did there. The biggest one came in October of 19 when I got a $5,000 scholarship. And what's really kind of funny, actually, is they offered it to me in either US currency or in Bitcoin.
Oh, my
and if I had taken it in Bitcoin, actually, it would have gone up in value, but we couldn't take the risk that it might have gone down. So I just find that kind of funny that that was offered, but we needed that cash.
Real quick, insert here, listeners, I am building a relationship with the CEO of a guy from Lionfish Cybersecurity who talked heavily in Bitcoin on a presentation that I attended this past year. And I'm trying to bring him on to a Tracy's Tuesday Talks to discuss the dark side of Bitcoin. Thank you. Continue.
So that was an option, but U.S. currency it was, because just like with anything, there's volatility involved, and we couldn't afford that at the time. But thankfully, we got that scholarship and a bunch of others, and it really helped us ride a wave. In addition to that, I was able to continue growing my business as well. I found something that has a good dollar per hour earnings potential, especially because I love what I do here. The Bar Association limits the amount of hours that one can work in a week when one is in law school. So if you're full-time, it's generally not more than 20 hours a week you can do. Thankfully, I didn't have to do that much just with the way that coaching goes. But the thing is that for a lot of folks, if you're going to try to work during school, you may want to see about doing a part-time program so that you can work more hours and not overload yourself. Kind of like you were referring before, Tracy, a lot of folks will say, well, I don't want my kids to work during school because their grades are going to suffer. Well, actually, no, that's not necessarily the case. Sometimes there's actually a positive correlation between working in school and your academic performance. And if I'm an example, I'm currently 12th out of 97 students in my class right now while working as a coach and doing all this completely debt-free. Not to toot my own horn here, but that's one example of the fact that you can work during school and provide for yourself and minimize or eliminate the need for student loan debt. And at the same time, you can still exceed academically.
Yes. So where did you go for these resources for these 70 scholarships that you applied for?
So I just started looking for different scholarship resources. One that was suggested during our coach training back when we did it was Scholly. It's going to be myscholly.com is the name of that resource. You put in a lot of your information, your interests, your academic background, your family background, things like that, and it will match you with scholarships based on all those different aspects of who you are as a person. It'll rate them on a scale of 1 to 10, and then it'll just give you those results, and you can mark down which ones you want to save for later and apply for, mark down which ones you've won, things like that. Very interactive and a great resource that I really highly recommend. It's about $30 a year for it. But if it gives you all that ease of access to scholarships you're more likely to win, that's a worthwhile investment. And I've had some clients who have also purchased that as well. Another one is CAPEX, CAPPEX. That one, it really gives you kind of a list of a lot of different scholarships. One thing that I like about it is that it actually shows you the level of competitiveness for each of the scholarships. It'll show you how many people are going to be applying for them. And if there's something that applies to you in a unique way, and there's a fairly small applicant pool, that increases your odds of winning. So that would be one way that you can say to yourself, hey, this is going to be worth the time because I have a greater likelihood of winning this one. Another couple resources, Nitro College, Niche, and ICHE. Those two have a number of different no essay scholarship applications you can do each month, actually. Niche and Nitro have a $2,000 drawing once a month that you can go for, and it takes like 2 or 3 minutes to apply, if even that. Unigo is another one, UNIGO. They have a lot of different, very unique, interesting scholarships that are on there. There's one, there's a Make Me Laugh scholarship I found on there. Just say your most outrageous story and you could win $1,500 for that. So those were some of the things that are on there as well. Anthony O'Neill, former Ramsey personality, he has a scholarship tool as well. So I've looked on his. I found that those are good really for undergrad, not as much for graduate students, but there's still plenty of resources for graduate students on some of those other resources. And then Scholarship Owl is one that I recommend as well. And it's another, combination source where you can scroll through different ones inside of that tool there. And I made an article for all of these and hyperlinked them out there, and we can comment that on the show notes as well in the comments when we get this posted.
Absolutely, absolutely. So one thing that I didn't hear is, and this is not a slide at all, but the one resource that I'm not hearing is your parents helping to pay for college.
That's right. Nothing from them for law school. They had helped me out for undergrad, but when I went to undergrad, I did it the usual way the first time. They helped pay for some of what was not covered by my grants and then what student loans I took out. And I'm grateful for what they were able to help out. But we are fully functional, independent adults here. We don't have any reliance on help from other people. Where of course we're trying to, do all the things that we have to do, and it's difficult. We've had quite a few situations where we've had to make hard choices, but that's everybody. But we have not had to rely on other people giving us money, thankfully. But if it did ever come to that, not saying that that's beneath us, because sometimes folks get into those situations here, but we've been provided for, we've been diligent, and we've been able to do that without assistance from either my in-laws or my own parents.
Yeah. So let me just pause right there and flip the script on that. Parents, you don't have to pay for your kids' college. There are ways that your kids can go to college debt-free. So you don't have to take out those loans and put yourselves in trouble and put yourselves in debt for the benefit of their education. It is possible for them to go to school debt-free. Now, if there is a way for you to be able to share that blessing and gift, by all means, absolutely. But there's a lot of pressure out there, Seth, for parents who feel almost guilted into paying for their kids' college. And you're a testament of that. You don't have to. There's still a way to do it debt-free.
Yeah, 100%. It's one of those things, and I'm, in my last semester, I'm working on an independent study on student loans and the law, and how the federal subsidization of the student loan industry has really just exacerbated this issue and caused tuition to go mile high so quickly. It's more than double the rate of inflation. That tuition has been increasing each year because of all the perverse incentives that have been going on with this. Well-intentioned by a lot of the lawmakers who have done this, but the road to hell is paved with the best of intentions, and we can't judge these things by their intentions. We have to judge them by their consequences, as Milton Friedman would say, Nobel Prize winning economist. So But part of this to resolving the student loan crisis here is also an active choice not to participate in the system that is perpetuating the crisis. It's to do things in a way that is different than what our culture says things have to be, choosing to take a different mentality and therefore choosing to have a different reality. Our situation is going to be a lot different than what a lot of my classmates are, and then what other future attorneys have from other law schools. We chose to do the hard thing up front so that we can have something greater long term. And this is something that individual folks can have. It may not happen on the time frame you'd like it to. Sometimes you may need to be patient. You may need to try things differently and do things in ways you haven't thought of before. But if you can have these types of things, if you're willing to be patient, to delay gratification, and to put in the work up front so that you're not mortgaging your future and giving a whole bunch of interest and all of your income to these student loan lenders that have really just taken such a toll on our society. It doesn't have to be that way.
Oh, amen, brother. Yes, yes. And for some people, college isn't for them, and that's okay. There are other ways to be able to have a comfortable and financially sound future without going to college. I'm one of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree with that. And I'm, starting to bring up some of these ideas from my clients who have kids who are not quite college age yet. But mentioning the fact that, in skilled trades, there's 5-6 million unfilled jobs in America right now. Those are well-paying jobs, things that pay $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 a year. And maybe you just have to go to a year of technical or trade school for that. And if you do end up taking out student loans, you can pay those off very quickly and actually be working in the field that you studied for. What a novel concept in higher education here. But there's also the idea of being an entrepreneur as well. Being a business owner, as you and I know, is very fulfilling. It's difficult. We have to make sacrifices. There's blood, sweat, and tears. But when you have ownership over that, it changes the entire dynamic of work and really just because you own what you're doing. You own the destiny that your business goes. And there's no limit on what you can earn as well, as long as you can continue to provide that value to people. So that's, I think, sorely underappreciated in our society. And I hope that we can try to change the dynamic on that. I know that Tennessee schools, the governor just said in a State of the Union address yesterday, he wants to see more training in high school so that students will have those certifications coming right out of high school and then get ready to go into the workforce without even having to do additional schooling. So I love initiatives like that. But again, all these types of things here require challenging the culture's current understanding of things and saying that there's a different way to do this. We can have better. Sometimes it's not going to look like necessarily what the culture says, but the culture is not always right. Just because that's a dominating force, dominating narrative, does not mean that it is correct. Sometimes it's those dissenting voices, and the ones who speak a different message are the ones who are calling out the culture's blind spots so that people can have something greater than what the let's call it the tyrannical element of that society may have and be taking away from them. And that's part of what we do here. These conversations, what we do with our clients is we help people to find that freedom and to think in different ways they haven't thought before.
Yes. And I'm excited for the freedom that you're going to have and the options that you're going to be able to choose when you graduate, because you aren't going to have to be tied to a high-paying law firm that you may or may not be happy to work with. You have the opportunity to choose your future and what you get to do with your degree and how you get to serve people, because you are not tied to payments. And I'm so thrilled and excited for you. So Seth, if people want to know more and they want to have a conversation with you, how can they get in touch with you?
So the best way to do that is to go to my website to get in touch with me. That's going to be Coach Connell Coach, CONNELL.com. You can click on my book a discovery session button if you'd like to set up a time. If you're local to the Hampton Roads, Virginia area, I meet with folks in person here, but otherwise I meet with people all over the country by Zoom video conferencing, everybody's favorite software now. So that's one way to do that as well. My email and phone number are also on there as well. You can also like and follow my Facebook page. I post all sorts of content on there. I'm writing articles and trying to provide value to help educate people. But if there's folks who are wondering about these things, especially attorneys who are looking to get out of that student loan debt, those are some of the folks I'm really hoping to be able to assist as young professionals who are trying to get rid of that and to build that generational wealth. I'm hoping to connect with a lot of those folks, given that I'm going to be in that sphere, and I'm really hoping to start doing that this year.
Yes. Well, Seth, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for joining me today on Tracy's Tuesday Talks. It has been an honor and a pleasure having you join me.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on, Tracy.
You too.